Hi everyone, it's Demilch again. Great to see you. Today we are going to talk about some of the most well-known bugs currently present in Dawn of War Soulstorm. And since the Definitive Edition was recently announced, I couldn't ignore this topic without saying a few words as well. Finally, after 70 years since the last expansion, we are getting, I'd say, a proper remaster of this game, if it's fair to call it that. And that's awesome, but of course, all of us want to point out the important issues in the game that we'd really like to see fixed. That's why I decided to gather some of the existing bugs, show how they affect gameplay, and offer some solutions or workarounds. This video was planned regardless the Definitive Edition, but now it feels even more relevant and hopefully more useful. The video will not show how to trigger these bugs, instead I will show you their effects. We will go through them starting with the ones that might be accidental, moving towards more intentional abuse, that can be considered outright cheating. I also hope this video reaches the developers and they get a chance to see it. In my opinion, it would be the best not to touch the game balance or change ability parameters. And honestly, I hope no such changes happen. One more thing. If anyone in the comments wants to add more bugs to the list, please don't describe how to reproduce them. Just describe the effect. Of course, I can't cover every single bug in the game, but I will definitely go over the biggest and most obvious ones. So feel free to share the ones you know too. If for some reason you don't know how to avoid a particular bug, feel free to send me your replay and I will let you know how to prevent it. Alright then, let's get into it. The first bug we are going to look at is the ability to add two Celestian Veteran Superiors. If you just click the upgrade icon twice, you will see that normally you can add a second model. However, it's surprisingly easy to add a second one by accident, and you might not even notice it if you are doing certain actions quickly. If this happens, you have 50 seconds to cancel the second surgeon before it finishes. Knowing about this bug allows you to keep an eye on the upgrade queue and cancel it in a time if needed. Abusing this bug gives you an insane 69% damage boost, and using it repeatedly in matches is considered bug using or cheating. Some of the funniest bugs happen with the Necrons, for example the infamous fake monolith, which becomes particularly immortal. Sure, it doesn't deal any direct damage, but it knocks enemy units around the map and can seriously disrupt the opponent, giving the Necron player an unfair advantage. What makes it worse is that you can't delete it. The delete key simply doesn't work on it, so it can be removed through normal means. In this case, the fairest thing to do is to set the monolith to hold fire and teleport it somewhere isolated on your base, somewhere far from the action, because when it's doing nothing, it still provides vision in a 60 radius, which is also unfair to the other player. The next two bugs involve the real living monolith. In the first case, you end up with 10,000 hit points instead of the normal 7.5. And you can even make the monolith invisible using the Necron Lord's ability, Veil of the Darkness. Just like with the flayed ones, the Necron Lord can be placed inside the monolith, and when that happens, the monolith becomes invisible as well. But in that moment, it gets worse, because nearby units, buildings and vehicles can become permanently invisible too. Only newly added models will remain visible. Now, at the first stage of this bug, if it happens accidentally, it's not the end of the world. The only issue is that from that moment on, you will need to only build vehicles, because infantry units will get stuck inside the monolith. Even the scarabs, which are detectors, will also get stuck, giving detection to the monolith, which is clearly unfair. When the monolith health drops to 2000 and half hit points, the fair solution is to simply delete it, which resets everything and keeps the match honest. However, if you start intentionally placing the Necronlord and Scarabs inside and continue using the monolith this way, that's clearly deliberate bug abusing. The second monolith bug is usually done intentionally, but it can also happen accidentally. In this case, the monolith that appears gets placed underground, making it completely unreachable by your opponent. No attacks or abilities can target it. If this happens, the only fair thing to do is to concede the match and leave the game, accepting the loss. Alternatively, if you still have other monoliths, you can continue playing with them. That would be still fair overall. However, if you lost everything and your only remaining monolith is the one underground, then you really need to exit the game, as there's no legitimate way to continue. One of the most frustrating bugs that can occur with the Dark Elder is the Infinity Stone caused by the Archon. A unit affected by this bug becomes stuck. It can't move or use abilities, though it can still shoot, and that's basically it. This bug can be triggered by both players. The good news is that recasting Animus Vitae ability on the same unit can cure the stuck unit and restore its movement. Alternatively, you can delete the unit to free it, but obviously that outcome will be rarely acceptable to your opponent. Players who've been using the Dark Elder for a long time generally know how to avoid this bug. So, let's think what should a Dark Elder player do if the bug occurs because of their actions. They can recast Animus Vitae to fix the unit. They can delete a unit of equal value from their own army and show that to their opponent. Or they can surrender and accept the loss. If the bug was not their fault, then it's fair to cure this unit and continue playing. In any case, if you are struggling with this bug or being accused of cheating and don't understand why it keeps happening, feel free to contact me. The next two bugs have been combined into one, since their effect is basically the same. The only difference is which unit causes it. One comes from the Big Mac, the other from the XV-15 steel suit. This bug only affects vehicles, and it's very similar to the previous Infinity Stun, but in this case, the affected vehicle completely stops firing, which arguably makes it even worse. Just like before, the bug does not resolve on its own, however, it can be fixed by reapplying the same ability to the affected vehicle. The recommendations here are the same as with the previous bug. The next bugs, in my opinion, fall more into the abusive category, but there's still a chance that a player might just think it's a part of the game's mechanics. The first such bug is the use of vehicles to body block enemy units, preventing them from shooting. Sometimes this happens unintentionally. For example, it often happens to me because I don't know exactly where enemy units will move, and while trying to position my destroyer in a better spot, I might end up past blocking enemy squads. The key issue here is that this isn't just about obstructing movement. It can shoot down a squad's function entirely. If it's done on purpose, it's usually very obvious during gameplay. One of the most devastating and broken bugs in the game occurs at the tier 4, when the Deceiver or the Archon interacts with the Tau. The effect is absolutely insane. All your buildings, units and vehicles as Necrons or Dark Elder start gaining massive amount of health over time. How about an Archon with 63,000 hit points, for example? Of course, if you didn't trigger this intentionally, your units probably won't reach such ridiculous numbers, but their health will still be unnaturally high to the point where they become nearly unkillable. Unfortunately, there's no fix for this bug. Once it happens, the only proper action is to leave the game, analyze what caused it, and make sure it never happens again. A Viper firing beyond its mark weapon range is technically a bug, but since these range limits are clearly visible, a player who wants to play fairly can easily stay within the proper bounds. Still, I get that at the first glance some players might assume it's just how the unit works. But now you know better. The next bugs I don't really want to highlight too much or focus on for too long. They're simple, and just by hearing the description you will easily understand that they're not meant to be used this way. It might be something like incorrect unit limits or wrong requirements displayed for an item, and so on. Now, let's move on to the bugs for which there's absolutely no justification. I'm showing the list on the screen again, since there's no real need to go into details here. The use of infinity bombing runs and invulnerability for the Imperial Guard Martyrs is hard to write off as an accident. The same goes for the endless teleportation of Orc squads using Big Mac teleport. This is clearly intentional abuse. Can you imagine a Necron player dropping 10 free generators and claiming it was accidental, or someone created more than one monolith then placing empty building templates to intentionally block pathing? And what about the orc population limit bug, when the whole map is full with orcs, well, beyond the cap, a result of a building structures in a specific way from the very start combined with later actions to trigger the effect? I don't know about you, but I personally wouldn't buy that story. There is also a controversial mechanic in the game, placing building templates directly in the front of enemy troop paths to obstruct their movement. Technically, this isn't a bug. Some tournaments allows it, others ban it. Personally, I don't use it, not because it's disallowed, but because it requires extra micro. I'm not here to encourage or forbid its use, it really comes down to personal preferences. If you don't like playing against someone who used this tactic, it's completely fair to avoid those matches. In this video I covered all the bugs I know that spoil multiplayer and in my opinion should be fixed first and foremost. Also, to be fair, the community can avoid exploding these bugs, but it would still be better if they simply didn't exist. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. Leave your comments below, maybe you have examples of similar bugs. If this video becomes really popular, I might consider making another one about bugs that prevent you from winning in a multiplayer. Or I could split it into separate parts and add them as guides for specific race. That's all for me for now. See you in the next videos.